Diana and Charles's relationship has fallen apart. Both have had affairs, and both use the media to leak damaging stories and settle scores.
First, Dianagate, allegedly a conversation between the princess and a male companion she called Squidgy. Then Camillagate, allegedly between Charles and his lover. Then the Highgrove tapes, supposedly of arguments between the prince and princess at their country home.
It became known as the War of the Waleses. I mean, whatever Charles did, Diana would do something better. And it became slightly unfair at times when I remember the media would sort of count the number of photographers' ladders at an event that the Prince of Wales was hosting compared with the number at something Diana was hosting. I mean, it was absurd.
The absurdity reaches new heights during a royal tour of India, when Diana humiliates her husband on Valentine's Day at a polo match he'd won with the kiss that missed.
Well, I remember the polo match as if it was yesterday. Diana didn't want to present the prizes, which she was down to do, and it took a bit of persuasion to get her to do it, and he went up to collect his prize first.
Charles went to kiss her, and she turned her back. Pictures of him kissing the back of her head. Of course, we sent that back home, and then the tabloids had a field day with it.
What you had was the kiss that wasn't. It was a picture that winged around the world pretty quickly. It was a story that told a million stories.
The separation is supposed to put an end to the War of the Wales, but it has the opposite effect. The feud intensifies. Charles agrees to promote a personal biography by being interviewed by the author on television. He causes a sensation by admitting adultery with his former lover, Camilla Parker Bowles.
Did you try to be faithful and honourable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage?
Yes, absolutely.
And you were?
Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down.
Charles's confession is intended to create front-page news. No member of Britain's royal family has ever said such a thing publicly before. Diana hears about the show and has other ideas. At the very moment her husband's adultery is being aired, she steals the headlines by attending a charity function wearing a stunning outfit which becomes known as the revenge dress.
That was just her at her most manipulative, magnificent. You know, the way she walked so slowly, the way she worked both sides of the crowd, the long walk, so they had lots of chances to get pictures of her. It was just gold dust.
The famous revenge dress. What was that? It was clever, manipulative, but again, totally appropriate.
But then remember, she was the first. She was the first person to do this, the first major celebrity to know how to manipulate the press. So when Diana would wear certain clothes or do certain things, we didn't realise we were being manipulated. That was the only picture in the following day's papers, and virtually every single paper was saying the same thing. Charles, Charles, how could you? You've let this go.
"120 miles northeast of Scotland, the Piper Alpha oil rig. At 14,000 tons and 2.5 times the height of the Statue of Liberty, it is one of the largest rigs in the world.
Piper Alpha was the world's most successful oil rig. What that means was that in a single day, Piper Alpha produced more barrels of oil than any other oil rig or oil platform in the world.
A crew of 226 rotate shifts to keep the oil and gas flowing. Jeff Bollins is the chief control room operator that evening. At 9:45 p.m., Jeff suddenly hears an alarm, indicating a problem with one of the rig's condensate pumps.
Them condensate injection pumps tripped more than any other equipment we had. No panic, we knew we needed to get it back on because it was going to start affecting production.
That evening, Pump A is offline for maintenance, leaving just Pump B working. The same pump that's now been shut down by the alarm's trip system.
The condensate pumps were an integral part of the production facility, You couldn't have them both offline for any great length of time without shutting down everything.
To avoid a full shutdown, a decision is made to halt maintenance on Pump A and bring it back online. But what nobody knows is that Pump A has a fatal flaw. During maintenance, its safety valve has been removed, meaning that there is nothing to stop thousands of cubic feet of gas escaping into the atmosphere. The faulty pump is switched back on. Then, at 9:55 p.m., disaster. A spark suddenly ignites the escaping gas, and an explosion rips through the rig. Confronted by 700-degree flames, most of the 226-strong crew are now either dead or severely injured.
The nearest analogy is that it was a cross between Titanic and the Towering Inferno.
All hell was breaking loose on that rig. It was just a scene for hell. It's the only way you could describe it, a scene of absolute carnage and hell. Flames, explosions, debris. Things were escalating so fast at that point, it was almost impossible to take things in.
By 10 to midnight, less than 2 hours after the initial blast, the Piper Alpha is on the verge of collapse. Finally, the rig's legs start to give way, and the Piper Alpha starts to slide into the sea.
Where module was, and the rest of the platform just started drifting apart. And the other 3/4 of the platform just very slowly fell into the North Sea. That's my worst memory of the night, because I know for people who were still on it, it would have gone to the bottom of the sea.
A total of 167 men lost their lives that night. Just 61 survived.
In the early days of the Cold War, Roswell was an obscure outpost of the U.S. Air Force's Strategic Air Command. Then, in 1947, a local rancher found what he claimed to be a flying saucer that had crashed on his land. The debris was brought here to the base for study. The military claimed it was just a weather balloon, but whisked it away to other bases in Texas and Ohio for further tests. When the story leaked, sensational news reports made Roswell a symbol of government conspiracies to cover up the existence of visitors from other planets. The incident sparked a UFO scare and inspired decades of science fiction movies. Then, 50 years after the incident, the Air Force released a report admitting that the wreckage was part of a secret system of atomic espionage. But for real believers, this is just another cover-up.
I'd become very, very aware of this frozen moment that was very unreal to me. The photographs didn't really have life in the way a drawing or painting did. And I realized it couldn't because of what it is. Compared to Rembrandt looking at himself for hours and hours and scrutinizing his face and putting all these hours into the picture that you're going to look at, naturally there's many more hours there than even you can give it. A photograph is the other way round. It's a fraction of a second, frozen. So the moment you've looked at it for even 4 seconds, you're looking at it for far more than the camera did. And it dawned on me that this was visible, actually. It is visible. I made a little photographic experiment with the Polaroid by putting 30 of them together, made a photograph of this house in a way that I've been trying to paint the house from 3 different viewpoints. And the photograph excited me so much. And, well, time was appearing in the picture. And because of it, space, a bigger illusion of space. Now, the space is an illusion. I was aware of that. But the time is not an illusion. It is real and accounted for in the number of pictures. You know it took time to take them, wait for them, put them down, and so on. And this began, I realized, was giving you this illusion of space that we had not seen, I had not seen in a photograph before.
By the end of 1992, Buckingham Palace was embroiled in a seedy family soap opera. The royals' popularity plummeted. They fear being disliked, since it can lead to questions about their very existence.
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
Charles and Diana had separated. Two of the Queen's other children announced their failed marriages. On top of that, in November 1992, fire ravaged the Queen's Windsor Castle home. The blaze led to a significant change at Buckingham Palace. The British government promised to pay for the repairs to the castle, but the public questioned footing the bill to restore the Queen's second home.
The Queen was pilloried for the next 2 weeks about government paying for it, suggesting that she lives there, she should pay for it.
People genuinely were upset. They were phoning radio phone-in programs, TV programs, bombarding newspapers, and in fact, convincing newspapers that this was a major issue here, and that why should the taxpayer at a time of recession be paying for repairs to a castle that they can't visit, that they don't use, and that is lived in by the royal family. The Queen was widely seen as the richest woman in the country. Surely she could pay for her damage to her own home.
To combat the negative press, Buckingham Palace announced it would be opened to the public for the first time. The money raised would pay for Windsor Castle's repairs.
Hundreds of tourists queued overnight for their first ever glimpse inside the palace. It was far from a sellout. Only half the available tickets sold today. £8 tickets, perhaps too dear for some, took them past the palace gates, the doors opening at 9:30 to allow the general public an historic view of such splendours as the grand staircase leading to the throne room.
Opening the palace for 2 months a year helped with the Windsor Castle problem.
July 16th, 1969.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Americans crowd highways and beaches to witness the launch of Apollo 11 from the Kennedy Space Center. On board, astronauts Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and Neil Armstrong.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
From the Oval Office, President Nixon watches along with 600 million people worldwide.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
Biggest TV audience ever at that time. On July 20th, the world sees the first men, Americans, walk on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hello, Neil and Buzz.
From the White House, the president congratulates the astronauts.
I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives.
The promise John Kennedy made at the start of the decade has been fulfilled. America has won the space race. It is Americans who show the world the view from the moon.
February 1st, 1960. With their plan in place, it was time to move.
We met in front of Bluefoot Library, and we said a prayer, the Lord's Prayer. And then we proceeded to walk downtown. We walked slowly and silently. We didn't say anything to each other when we left that campus that day. I didn't know what was going to happen.
We tried to imagine all the possibilities. One was I was going to go to jail for a long time and never come back to school. Or the other, I was going to be trying to pick my brains up off the floor and maybe come back to my campus in a casket. But it meant just that much to me.
We made a journey down South Elm Street, and we walked through the middle doors quietly into Woolworth's.
To establish themselves as customers and not troublemakers, the young men made small purchases in the store.
I remember purchasing a comb, a brush, a toothbrush, and Colgate toothpaste. And I received a receipt. Joseph and Franklin went before me. I think David was behind me. And one by one, we took our seats.
You know, 15 seconds after I sat on that stool, I felt so clean. I felt invincible. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have felt cheated if I had died at that moment, because I had gone to my mountaintop and I saw the other side. I was whole. I was redeemed.
(1536) had been a terrible year for Henry, but for Thomas Cromwell, everything was starting to fall into place. He'd persuaded Henry to get rid of the dangerous Anne Boleyn. He'd been knighted and made Baron of Wimbledon. Acting as Chief Minister, Cromwell's role was arguably the most crucial to steering the course of Henry's reign. But as well as serving the king, Cromwell served his own interests. He was a commoner, desperate to join the world of royalty and aristocracy.
He wanted to be part of the Grand Court, the court to which the nobility belonged and had a place by virtue of birth. Cromwell is a member of the middling gentry as a result of rising through the legal system. Cromwell doesn't own that position.
It was this combination of low birth and high ambition that made Cromwell a very dangerous man.
I think he was ambitious and insecure in a strange combination of ways, and that made him willing, I think, to go much further than others would go.
And he was soon to reveal his true colours. With the country having broken from the Pope in Rome to secure Henry's divorce from Catherine of Aragon, nearly 900 religious houses, from monasteries to abbeys and priories, were now under the control of the king himself.
It's like a vast nationalisation. It is as if a government today came in and nationalised half of the wealth of the country. That was in private hands.
Cromwell spotted an opportunity to enhance his standing with Henry by making his king rich.
With papal jurisdiction out of the way, it's as if the constraints are gone. Cromwell has a mandate to do whatever he wishes.
And so, across the kingdom, Cromwell began pulling down religious buildings and stripping them of anything of value.
They're taking ornaments, they're taking linen, they're taking beds. Vast amounts of books, libraries of books are burned. And then they're just thrown onto a bonfire. It's an amazingly disruptive social moment, and sort of like an orgy of stripping and, gutting a great institution. There's no precedent for it.
The devastation that this wreaked can still be seen to this day. These magnificent buildings had dominated the landscape for centuries, inspiring reverence and pride among the people who lived by them. But the money the dissolution made went straight into Henry's pocket. The treasury swelled, and Cromwell's favour with the king increased.
The USS Indianapolis has served as flagship to the Fifth Fleet. As it speeds across the Pacific, the 1,196 men on board have no idea a Japanese submarine, commanded by Mokitsura Hashimoto, has their ship in her sights. Hashimoto wastes no time and fires.
All of a sudden, a massive explosion.
Raging fires cause backdrafts of flame to rip through the corridors below decks. The ship is sinking so fast, the crew have no time to launch lifeboats. Those 900 men who make it into the water have only basic life jackets and a few simple rafts to keep them from sinking. As the Indianapolis sank, her frantic SOS messages were picked up by 3 separate Navy bases in the region. But due to a series of operational mistakes, the messages failed to make it up the command structure.
What we do know for a fact is that no rescue was, in fact, initiated.
As morning dawns, the Indianapolis's crew find themselves adrift in some of the deepest waters of the Pacific. In the biggest group, known as the swimmers, many are weak and injured. Some are bleeding from open wounds. But now, their ordeal is about to take a horrific turn. Shark attack. Oceanic white tips. Aggressive and opportunistic predators. They pick off the dead and wounded. By dawn on day 2, another 100 men have lost their lives to shark attack, injury, and exhaustion. Now the men are suffering from a new form of hardship: thirst. The average human can survive 4 days without water, but in extreme heat, this figure drops to just 2.
By now, we're seeing boys that would dare to drink some of that salt water. Within the hour, you can tell what it has done to him. He doesn't know straight up.
As day turns to night, more and more men begin to drink the salt water. Those who drink the seawater are quickly overtaken by extreme hallucinations. Some think they're comrades or enemy soldiers. Some lose their minds altogether and attack. During the night, the death toll among the Indianapolis's crew has risen sharply. Less than 350 of the original crew of 1,200 still survive.
It's doubtful they could have lasted another 1, 2, or 3 days. The lack of water and then just the physical environment itself. It's a highly corrosive environment that they're floating in.
Then, a miracle. A PV-1 Ventura, piloted by Lieutenant Chuck Gwynn, is on a routine patrol when he notices a dark shape below. Unable to land, Gwynn radios in his position. By the afternoon of day 4, a massive search and rescue operation is finally underway. Of the Indianapolis's original crew of 1,196 men, a staggering 879 were killed in the disaster. Miraculously, though, 317 men survived the ordeal.